Now it's time for Teacher Talk, James's thoughts and insights into teaching international students.
So, teachers, are you looking for someplace to go that is unique, different, off the beaten path? Why not teach in Iraq? Yes, that's what a former teacher of mine did. He left my school and went to Iraq. Welcome to the show, Brent Baumgartner.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Now, you didn't leave my school because you thought Iraq would be better, did you?
Well, not quite. No, not at all. I was pursuing professional development.
Good. Well, you were certainly developed professionally, I think, in Iraq. I'm very curious to hear about your experience. Now, what year did you go to Iraq?
Well, I was just thinking back to that. So I think it would have been 2016, 2017. Seems to make sense to me.
Yeah. And you're not there now. You are in Egypt now?
No, I've left there. I was only there for one school year. One school year, and I'm now in Cairo, Egypt,
right,
just up the road a bit.
Okay, so you were 1 year in Iraq and then went to Cairo. Now, what drew you to going to Iraq? Because I think you didn't actually leave my school and go to Iraq. You had traveled around Asia and Japan, China. I mean, some traditional teaching places. But what drew you from those places to Iraq?
Well, the same as many people, I just needed a job, and they offered me one, and the circumstances fit my needs as I fitted their needs, and they said, "Okay, you're on board." I had a friend, as often happens, people connect with friends in the business, and I had a friend working there. He passed my name on to the headmaster, who then called me for an interview, and things went well. And they were looking for a specific kind of teacher, one who wasn't bringing family along. It's not a dangerous place, but it was not equipped for families. And typically it was a slightly older set of teachers. And I kind of fit into that a little bit, not too much, but I'm a bit older than your new young upstart teachers. And so I had the experience that they were looking for, and it was just good circumstance, good money, very, very good money.
Okay, well, that's an important question, because I think teachers want to know, how was the pay?
Well, at that time, it was extremely good because we were being sponsored by a university in Turkey, and the founder of the school had a large foundation behind him. At that time, I was earning over $4,000 US a month, and that was quite nice because my expenses were well under $500 US a month. So
wow.
I was pocketing quite a bit of change for my retirement and travel and fun. But generally, in and around Iraq, other schools were paying around $2,000 to $2,500, $3,000 US a month. It was more the going rate.
And your expenses are very cheap. So what was your apartment and food and the major expense? What was your big expense? How much was an apartment?
Well, the apartment was paid for, so that was not an expense. We had food at school. We had at least one meal at school was paid for. The lunch, the nice large lunch meal was paid for, so that was fine. Transportation to the shopping mall. We had a beautiful large Carrefour. All the goods in Kurdistan, which is the northern part of Iraq, the Kurdish people's traditional homeland. They are connected with Turkey and do a lot of trading with them. So we had three or four large Carrefour hypermarts fully stocked, as well as other brands, Sony and Samsung and Apple and like that, those sorts of retailers. We had different American brands. Canadian First Cup was there. It was much more international than one might realize, given that there's a lot of NGO workers coming in and out and military type people coming in and out supporting Iraq in the problem with ISIS and fighting them back.
Now, we'll talk about safety, obviously, because that's going to be a one concern, I think, for any teachers who might be considering going to the region. But before that, tell me about the living. Was it a compound such as in Saudi Arabia? Because I know in Saudi Arabia the teachers live on a compound, and they just all live together in a compound. Is that what it was like in Iraq?
Yeah, we had four. Let me put it again. It was four large 3-story townhouse type of buildings behind the school around it was a fence. It was fenced in area. To say it was a gated community, we had to go through security to enter the grounds. So it was secure as far as that was concerned. Very nice, large apartment, fully furnished, air conditioned, washing machine, dishwasher, 2-bedroom with a master ensuite. Very comfortable, very modern, brand new construction.
And was there any restriction for you traveling outside of this compound?
No, not really. Just a matter of rounding up a taxi to get off the grounds. We had a school bus that would take us, like I said, to the local shopping malls. But if you wanted to get out in a taxi, there were several fellows that were connected with the school. It was just a phone call or a text message away, and they would come and pick you up. And people did all the time. You would go into the city. There was a section of the city called Ankara, if I remember the name correctly. It was the Christian enclave of the city. And within that area, you would find pubs and restaurants that served alcohol. And then generally, Erbil is a very ancient city. The citadel is world renowned for having continuous occupation for over 6,000 years. So it's a very ancient place as well. And you can take the taxi on the weekends up into the mountains. There were ski resorts, lovely villages to visit, hiking opportunities. The north of Iraq is quite mountainous and really, really very beautiful. And
okay, so you're painting a kind of Sound of Music existence here.
So yeah, I love. I really
I'm
enjoyed
thinking this is still Iraq. You know, this is a war-torn country. You've got ISIS on the border. I mean, you've got Trump, and you've got all of this war going on. I mean, you're painting a pretty nice picture. I mean, it can't be that secure.
I mean, had been one. The Kurdish area is an autonomous region, much like, say, maybe Quebec is in Canada. They still use the Iraqi dinar as the currency, but the everything else, the language, the schools, everything is run by the Kurdish people in their area. And one of the areas of run by the Kurds was the security force, the Peshmerga, and so they controlled the borders of the area. And at this time, the ISIS had been pushed out of Iraq for the most part. They were on the other side of a large, long river and a huge desert, and then a couple of lines of Peshmerga men.
Oh, hello.
Had not been any kind of.
We just lost you there for a moment, Brent. On that thought.
Yes.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
So it was very safe. Have you got me again?
Yeah, you're back on. Sorry, listeners, he is in Cairo, so we're going across the internet around the world. So we will have some dropouts. Yeah. But you felt safe.
Yeah.
Bottom line,
absolutely. There were grandmothers.
Sorry, go ahead, Brent. You never felt any. Yep, I'm here. You never felt any danger.
Only in traffic, as you do in many developing countries. The traffic was a bit hairy. There were a few large dogs outside the compound walls that were, local feral type dogs. They never bothered anybody, but they were always there, so you're aware of them. The summer temperatures can go up to over 50 degrees Celsius, so you really have to watch out for your dehydration and so forth. We had good clinics. We had people securing our doors. So no, I felt very safe. Very, very charming, lovely, hospitable people. I really cannot say enough wonderful things about the people of Kurdistan and northern Iraq.
Let's talk about the school experience. What did you teach, and how were the resources, and how about the language?
Well, we were a international baccalaureate school, IB school. We were growing at one grade per year, so we were only currently at that time. They were up to the fifth grade. I had a small class of grade one students. As I recall, it was around 16 or 17 grade one students. English was the medium of instruction. As well, because the school was owned by a Turkish university, it was a semi-bilingual school. The specialist classes were taught in Turkish, and the children also learned their local Kurdish language as well.
And how about the resources? Did you have a lot of resources there? I mean, could you use the internet okay? Download things?
Yeah. The internet was fine, pretty good speed. The school resources were amazing. Like I said, the school was owned by a Turkish university. The founder of the school is a former Kurdish man himself. He's passed away a number of years ago, and he wanted to pay back to the people who had given him so much. So his gift to the Kurdish people was opening this international school. And really, I have to say, it was probably one of the best resourced schools I have ever worked at. Lots of reading materials, lots of mathematical materials, really excellent resources. Zero complaints about that.
Okay, so
very, very generous.
So listening to you again is very picturesque, and I'm just thinking, some teachers may be saying, "Okay, how about the parents? How are they?"
The parents were quite grateful for us being there. Many of them did not understand our Western methodologies of education, being more child-centered and project-based, inquiry-based, where you want children up and moving around. Like many parents of an age and a time, they were expecting a educational system more teacher-centered. So it took some education for them to understand what we were doing. The children are learning in a foreign language, and so our results were always not up to, say, what native-speaking children would do in a Canadian school. But we were dedicated, and children being being who they are, eager learners, and we're picking up the English language. Parents recognized the value of what we were offering for their children outside of Iraq. So they were very accommodating to us, very generous parents in that regard. Although I wouldn't say they were wealthy like you imagine international school parents to be.
What do you think would have been your biggest problem?
Dealing with some of the administrators.
So pretty much the same in Canada and North America.
Well, except for your school, which had a brilliant administration. I would always.
Yes, we were. Yes, exactly.
Well, when you're dealing with other people controlling the money, and trying to explain why things are done, they are in a pedagogical sense. Often people don't understand that argument. And so how things have to happen in order to be a valid school, a legitimate school, it was often challenging to get that message across. There were some language issues, of course, dealing with local people. But honestly, as you probably know yourself, having traveled the world, the Middle East has a massive reputation of being very hospitable. And I think you would see that in very, very much in evidence in Iraq as well,
and
as other places.
And very grateful, I would say. I often found
Yeah.
when I've traveled to the Middle East, they're very, very grateful that you've taken the time to come and learn and understand their culture.
Indeed, yes. I still stay in touch with people in Erbil, and through internet, of course, it's in Facebook. They're really, really, we're so happy that we were there and recognize that, yeah, they finally, although they're kind of a forgotten nation, they're not a forgotten people. So, yeah, we were always treated very well.
Now,
It was a very good experience.
what would you say to the teacher who's listening, saying, and I hear this a lot, and I've heard this a lot throughout my career is, wow, you are very brave to go there. You are, it's very courageous action that you've taken on. I could never do that. What would you say to somebody like that?
Well, we all have our own comfort zones, and we all know what our tolerances are. As you know, as a teacher going out for the first time, I was moving to Taiwan, a place you know quite well, and I was very afraid of what I was going to face. I needed a job. I was not getting anything in Canada work wise, and then I arrived, and there was some mix-ups and miscalculations with the schools, and it was a bit frustrating at first. But then you settle in and you meet other people, and you realize we all have, as teachers, we all have the same goals, we all have the same desires to teach our children, have a nice life, do a bit of traveling, have a beer or two after work, nibble on the local delicious foods. Yeah, so it was. At first you are going to be unsure, but so is everybody in that position. So you actually very quickly get over that, I found.
And I think that if you are a new teacher looking to travel abroad, wouldn't you say like going to one of the safer, maybe not safer, but one of the more traditional places, China, Japan, Korea would be a good start. But going to Iraq, if you've been in China or Japan or in Asia teaching abroad, maybe you want something different, and Iraq would be the spot for you where you've got a bit more experience behind you.
Yeah, I would say if you have if you're talking international schools, as I'm, referring to now, where I have a degree in education and I'm certified with the Ontario College of Teachers. That kind of teaching. You oftentimes, as I did, I found my job through a job placement agency, one of the bigger ones that we're aware of, and so I was you know, even though I had friends at the school and used those networks, I went through the agency, and the school asked for that to happen for their own, for getting references and police checks and things like that. So you do need to have those things in advance. If you're going as an ESL teacher, then you may be better off in some of the bigger, well-known places like Korea, Japan, China, Taiwan, Thailand. Although there's more competition these days in those sorts of countries, you have more security and more expats to sort of lean up against.
Now, if there are teachers out there wanting to go to Iraq, how did you mentioned a job placement agency? Where would they go? What was the placement service that you used?
Well, I use one called Search Associates. You're probably well aware of them as well. It's not the cheapest one in town, but they have a fantastic database of schools. It's very well vetted. All the teachers, your documentation has to be right up to speed. The schools are vetted by the agency, so they're not fly-by-night places, and they have a fairly high hiring rate. There's job fairs around the world. The next one coming up, I believe, is in London, and they are looking for teachers to fill positions around the world. However, you would need to have at least 2 years of teaching experience at a board school or another international school to get into this kind of world. That would be kind of a minimum requirement, I would say.
Right. Okay. Well, that's fantastic, Brent, and it's wonderful to chat with you, and much appreciated. And I wish you heaps of success on your world travels. You're in
Thank
Egypt
you.
now. Next, where are you headed to?
Well, I'm not
looking at?
heading anywhere. I'm quite satisfied here. Egypt has got fantastic travel opportunities and worldwide connections. My teaching life is going well. So don't rock the boat. I say, I'm going to enjoy my life here.
All right, that's fantastic. Well, we will definitely catch up with you again. Thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Visit. Thank you so much.
The Study It textbooks are the first ever completely digital and interactive English as a second language textbook series. Once downloaded, these textbooks do not require a Wi-Fi connection. Students and teachers can use them anywhere, anytime. Used in over 40 schools, universities, and NGOs worldwide. Study It is the future of English teaching. Visit www.studyitbooks.com for more information.